Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the personal essay, since that is the mode of creative nonfiction that we are now working on. And remember that we are going to also be doing the memoir and the literary profile. And you have watched the videos, so you know some of the difference between the personal essay, which tends to be focus on stories that are a bit more up to date, that are also reflecting some sort of more global event that often integrate research into them, rather than memoir pieces, which are more in the past and tend to be circumscribed in terms of past events. So one thing that I would really encourage all of you to do is to create an outline. Now, when does an outline happen? Sometimes, and I write this way, you will just free write. You know, you begin with your free write and you start to explore, and whatever comes to mind, you're writing down and you're getting out there, because oftentimes we don't even know what we want to write until we're actually writing. So the free write is wonderful for that. And then from the free write, you will understand what truly engages you, where you see a connection between something in your own life and maybe something that's going on in the outside world. And you'll create this personal essay that sort of serves as a bridge between the two. So, you know, an outline will then, you will move into the outline phase. Now, it is not a neat process. It's not that you do free write, then you do outline, then you start writing your essay, right? You are always toggling back and forth between and amongst the various components of the process. So you probably will start writing, you know, a first draft, and you'll go back to your outline and say, wait a minute, this needs to be here, this needs to be there. This I find particularly with your introductions. So introductions are almost always terrible. And oftentimes the real thrust of the piece doesn't begin until about paragraph 3. So, you know, because a lot of that is just working up towards what you actually want to say. So look down once you've done a draft and see, and for your peers as well, does the real essay get going, you know, a couple of lines or even a paragraph or even 3 paragraphs down into that draft? You know, you want to get as close sort of to the tension as possible. So a whole bunch of backstory isn't really going to hook your reader in, and that's incredibly important for this kind of writing. So then you have your body paragraphs, right? Your body paragraphs, you really want to think about sensory details, really inviting the reader into the space of the essay, into the place that you remember, right? To the people, to the smells, to the sounds. Be specific, really ground us in the specificity of what you saw and experienced, so that we too can see and experience it. You know, I often get students who will say to me, oh, but I want to leave this up to the reader's imagination. And actually, the job of the writer is to be specific, is to create the world. So if you are vague, you are leaving your job up to each reader. And in fact, the readers have less experience of the world if you're not offering those details, not more. It's not that the reader's then filling in with his or her own imagination. You know, we really depend on the writer to do that for us, to give us those sensory details so we can hook in on them and have that world come to us. So then you move into the conclusion. And I know you're all familiar with these terms from, you know, having written your academic essays, but the creative nonfiction essay has a similar trajectory. It's just more of a narrative. So your conclusion is, you know, bringing in that more global aspect, right? If you're just writing an essay that is only about your own experience and doesn't involve the reader, doesn't offer something at a more global scale, then you're probably not going to have a very effective personal essay. Okay. Part of the work of the personal essay is to also reach beyond the personal, right? To show how your personal anecdote fleshes out something more global, some more global concern. So, you know, your conclusion should at some level be reiterating that. And then, of course, go back and proofread your work. Very, very important. You don't want to ever hand anything in that's not proofread. Now, obviously, we will be making some copy edits as well, and we will be giving you feedback on these drafts, but you want to have done your absolute best for this first draft, because if you hand in something too early, you already know what's wrong with it. So you're not going to benefit much from having me or your peers come in and tell you, oh, you should do this or that, if you already have that understanding, right? You want to get it to where you just don't know anymore how to proceed. And that is your first draft. Now, your first draft the first draft you're handing in represents multiple drafts you've gone through with your writer's notebook, from exercises, right? So it's not the first draft you've ever written. And you go back into that draft and make changes, before handing that in. And then you will be getting feedback from me and from your peers. And then you're going to be doing a much richer revision. You're not just going in and changing this and that, a couple things down the line. I suggest putting it aside and rewriting, right? Re-outlining and then rewriting that draft. All right, so we will continue to talk more about drafting, but that's sort of an overview of attractions to come. Happy writing, everyone.